Hey guys, tonight we travel to the lush green islands of Aotearoa, modern-day New Zealand, where the earth bubbles, steam rises from ancient volcanic vents, and you, yes you, are standing barefoot near a natural hot spring, about to cook your first pre-battle meal for a group of intensely tattooed Māori warriors. No pressure, right? Except the steam smells vaguely like eggs. There's a faint hum of war chants in the background, and someone just handed you a root vegetable the size of a toddler's leg. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing the little constellation of sleepyheads we've built around the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a patch of scorched earth near Rotorua, sometime in the late 1700s. The ground is hot, literally hot. You shift your feet because one spot feels like it might cook your toes. Around you, warriors in flax-woven cloaks sharpen their weapons, check their feathered headbands, and eye the steam rising from the earth like it's just another cooking fire, which, for them, it kind of is. One of them, older, broad-shouldered, missing part of an eyebrow, tosses you a bundle wrapped in banana leaves. "That's the meat," he grunts. No other instructions. Not even a smile. "Welcome to the hangi." The hangi is the traditional Māori earth oven. It's simple in theory and deeply sophisticated in practice. You dig a pit, heat rocks until they're glowing, toss in baskets of food, usually meat, root vegetables, maybe some fish, cover the whole thing with wet cloth and earth, and let it steam. For hours. Sometimes half a day. If you do it wrong, you get smoky, mud-flavored disappointment. If you do it right, you feed warriors. You crouch beside a warrior named Tu, who's layering hot rocks into the pit. He's explaining, very slowly and as if to a small child, that the size of the stones matters. Too small, they lose heat too fast. Too big, they crack. You nod seriously, like you knew that all along. What's being cooked today? Kumara, the native sweet potato, is the star. It came to New Zealand centuries earlier, likely carried by Polynesian voyagers. It's starchy, a little sweet, and stores well, perfect for fueling long canoe journeys or long battles. Next to it, you spot chicken. Yes, chicken. The Polynesian ancestor of modern Māori brought the moa, a giant flightless bird, but it went extinct centuries earlier, hunted to oblivion. So now they raise chickens. The more common protein, though, is seafood, eels from rivers, fish from the sea, even shellfish. That bundle you got? You peek inside. It's eel, slimy, coiled, and now steaming gently inside the hangi. There's a rhythm to this. It's not just cooking, it's ceremony. The hangi isn't something you throw together casually. It's often tied to big events, births, funerals, or war. The act of feeding each other is sacred. The act of cooking this way is a kind of offering to ancestors, to the gods, to the land. You sit back and notice the silence. No one's talking. Just the hiss of steam, the crackle of stones, and the occasional thud of a taiaha, a traditional Maori weapon being tested in the dirt. This isn't just fuel. This is psychological preparation. The process grounds everyone. The scent of earth and meat and sweet kumara tells your body, soon it begins. Fun fact, some historians believe that hangi-cooked food actually helped calm pre-battle nerves. There's something deeply centering about warm, earthy flavors and a predictable ritual. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some scholars argue the real reason for the hangi was purely practical. Feed lots of people fast with minimal pots and pans. You help pack the top layer of earth over the steaming mound. Someone nods approvingly. You're part of the team now, apparently. And you realize something strange. You're no longer nervous. You're hungry. The food won't be ready for hours. But as the sky darkens and the warriors settle around the fire to tell stories, you understand why this moment matters. It's not just a meal before battle. It's a reminder. We come from the land, we feed from the land, and we fight for it. You wake early, not to the sound of an alarm, but to the thudding rhythm of feet, bare, strong, purposeful, beating against the soft soil. The warriors are training, and you, apparently, are late. You scramble up, brushing off dried leaves, and instantly you're at sleeping that close to a hangi pit. Your cloak smells like roasted eel and damp earth. Not unpleasant, but let's just say you wouldn't wear it on a first date. Today isn't about cooking. Today is about conditioning. Because before Māori warriors picked up their spears, they trained their bodies like machines. Precision, agility, and stamina weren't just assets. They were necessities. Battle wasn't about who could scream louder or look scarier. It was about timing, grace, and sometimes endurance that bordered on mythic. So what powered this kind of physical intensity? You guessed it. Food. But not just any food. As you're handed a small bowl, something resembling a thick mash of dark purples and browns, you give it a cautious sniff. It's a combination of mashed kumara, crushed berries, and, is that fern root? Yes. Yes, it is. Known as arue, the root of the bracken fern was one of the staples of the pre-European Māori diet. You'd never guess it by looking at it, scraggly, tough, and stubborn as a bad haircut, but it was a powerhouse of carbs. Ground, pounded, and soaked, it gave warriors lasting energy. Not tasty by modern standards. But you're not here for a 5-star brunch. You're here to not pass out mid-sprint. You start training with a group led by a wiry man named Rangi. His arms are thin but veined like river maps, and he moves like a shadow. He hands you a taiaha, a wooden weapon used for close combat, and tells you to mimic his steps. Foot back, jab, turn, lunge. You think you're doing okay until he gently whacks your ankle with the blunt end and says, "Dead already?" Great. After an hour of this, you're ready to pass out. But then comes kai o te ra, the midday meal. This one is lighter, more kumara, some boiled fish, a few foraged greens. You eat with your hands, in silence, facing outward in a circle. It feels ritualistic. It is. According to oral histories, food wasn't just nourishment. It carried tapu, a sacred spiritual force. Some foods, especially in certain contexts, were considered so tapu that they couldn't be eaten near sacred objects, or even by certain people. In war camps, food was separated from weapons, sleeping quarters, and ceremonial spaces. This wasn't just superstition. It was order. It was belief shaping behavior. You notice something interesting. Nobody is overeating. These are warriors, yes, but they don't gorge. Meals are balanced, frequent, but never gluttonous. Strength was respected, but control was revered. And here's where things get weird. Rangi tells you that before some battles, warriors would intentionally fast, not eat at all, to sharpen their minds, to align with their ancestors, to feel lighter, faster. Some would even meditate beside their weapons, whispering to them like old friends. It sounds strange, but then again, this whole world moves to a rhythm, you're just starting to hear. Historically, anthropologists debated whether this kind of fasting truly improved performance. Some say it did, light stomach, clear head. Others say it was symbolic, more mental than physical. A ritual gesture of respect to the spirit world before potentially joining it. The jury's still out. By late afternoon, your legs ache, your arms throb, and your stomach is somewhere between satisfied and politely disappointed. You're offered a drink, a dark liquid made from karamu leaves, mildly bitter, oddly energizing. Think prehistoric Gatorade, but leafier. As the sun dips low and the firelight returns, you begin to see the full choreography of this life. Every meal, every movement, every bite of root or sip of tea. It's all part of the same script. A script older than memory, passed down not by books, but by hands, by fire, and by the quiet rhythm of footsteps in the dirt. And as you fall into your bed of woven mats, you wonder, are you training for a battle or a transformation? The air smells different today. More smoke, more anticipation. You wake to the sound of conch shells, long and low, echoing across the valley like distant thunder. Something's happening. No one's talking much, but you feel it in the air like static. You're summoned to the communal fire pit, and someone hands you a carefully wrapped bundle. Inside, roasted kumara and a small pouch of dried paua, abalone, chewy, salty, and packed with protein. It's not breakfast. It's preparation. Because today, you're going hunting. Not for deer, not for boar, but for mena, that deeply powerful, almost untranslatable Māori concept, honor, prestige, strength, and spiritual authority, all wrapped into one word. And food, in this world, is a vehicle of mana. What you hunt, how you cook, who you share with, it all tells the story of who you are. You follow a group of warriors, all lean muscle and quiet confidence, deep into the forest. No one carries loud weapons. No one speaks above a whisper. This isn't a survival reality show. It's sacred. Every movement feels rehearsed, deliberate. You feel like an apprentice watching a dance you haven't yet learned the steps to. The group fans out, and you trail behind a man named Hemi, who moves like a wisp of smoke between trees. He teaches you how to spot signs of wild pigs, broken fern stalks, scattered dung, fresh diggings in the dirt. Then he stops suddenly, holds up a hand. You freeze. Ahead, nestled between two tree trunks, a pig. Big, ugly, mean-looking. You raise your spear, hands shaking slightly. Hemi gently pushes it down. Not yet. And instead of killing it, you both crouch and observe. Why? Because not all pigs are equal. Some are sacred, associated with specific ancestors. Others are too old, their meat too tough. Some are simply left alone. What you eat is never just about hunger. It's about balance. Tikanga, the code of conduct that governs Māori life, and you are very much still learning it. Eventually, another group brings back a smaller pig. The kill is quick, respectful. There's no cheering, no backslapping. Instead, the hunters sing a short karakia, a prayer, thanking the spirit of the animal. You join in, quietly, unsure of the words, but certain of the feeling. It's solemn, intimate, almost haunting. Back at the camp, the cooking begins. This time, you're invited to help with the umu ti'is, an earth oven used specifically for preparing tiam root, a tough, fibrous plant that, after being baked for over 24 hours, turns sweet and syrupy. It's like nature's slow-cooked candy. You help unwrap the pig, place it on hot stones, layer it with cabbage tree leaves, and cover it with earth. The whole process takes hours, and by the time steam starts seeping from the cracks in the soil, your stomach is audibly complaining. But eating is not immediate. First, the kai is blessed. A local elder stands, his voice deep and smooth, as he offers thanks to the ancestors, the land, the animal. Then finally, you're handed a leaf-wrapped portion. The meat is tender, smoky, infused with earth. The ti root is almost sticky, sweet enough to count as dessert. It's delicious, and earned. Here's a fun fact you didn't expect. Maori hunters didn't just rely on meat. Birds were a huge part of the pre-European diet, especially aitwatn or mutton birds. Fatty, salty, and preserved in their own oil inside bark containers, they were the ultimate high-energy trail snack. Think jerky, but birdier, and way oilier. Some people today still love them. Others, not so much. Modern historians still debate the exact scale of bird hunting and whether some species were over-harvested. Archaeological digs suggest a sharp drop in large bird populations shortly after the first waves of Maori settlement, but oral traditions emphasize respectful stewardship. As always, the full picture probably lives somewhere in the gray area between legend and science. As the fire dies down and the last embers flicker under a curtain of stars, you lie back, belly full, eyelids heavy. The forest hums with night sounds, and the air tastes like charcoal and cooked roots. You feel something ancient stirring in your chest, a quiet awe, maybe, or just digestion. Whatever it is, you sleep hard. Your body wakes before the sun, stiff from sleeping on woven mats, but your spirit feels different, lighter, as if last night's food, song, and fire didn't just nourish you, but rewired something inside you. You stretch, yawn, and then notice what everyone else is already doing. They're painting their faces. You kneel near a small stream, watching your reflection ripple as someone smears a deep red pigment across your forehead. It's ochre mixed with shark oil, sticky and sharp-smelling. You flinch a little when it hits your skin. For strength, someone murmurs, and for being seen. But being seen today isn't about vanity. It's about survival. You're about to witness hoka in its natural habitat, not as a rugby pregame performance, but as a fierce psychological weapon of war. The ground vibrates as the warriors form ranks, bodies moving in perfect rhythm. You don't just see hoka, you feel it in your bones. The stomping, the shouted chants, the bulging eyes. It's not for show. It's a declaration. We are here. We are many. And you might want to reconsider your life choices. You try joining in, mimicking the movements. It's harder than it looks. Your timing's off. Your hands slap late. One warrior laughs and calls your effort endearing. You'll take it. After haka comes kai again. Not a feast this time, but precise, efficient nourishment. You're handed a small bundle, smoked eel and mashed fern root. The eel's texture is, let's say, complicated, and the fern root is dry and slightly bitter, but together they work. Energy food, nothing fancy, just fuel for what lies ahead. Here's something curious. Eel, or tuna, wasn't just food. It was also a symbol of migration, mystery, and memory. Maori knew eels traveled vast distances to spawn and die. No one really knew where. That mystery made them sacred. They were caught with hinaki, woven traps, and stored alive in ponds for fresh meat on demand, kind of like ancient aquaculture, way ahead of its time. You're invited to help make one of those traps. It's surprisingly delicate work, bending vines, weaving reeds, tightening knots. You fumble through your first few tries, but eventually the structure starts to take shape. You feel absurdly proud, even if no eel would be fooled by your lopsided prototype. Suddenly, there's a shift in the energy. A runner appears, breathless, words spilling out in urgent bursts. A scouting party has spotted movement along the coast. Another tribe, armed, and not exactly friendly. The village doesn't panic. There's no screaming, no chaos, just action. You're swept up in it, gathering supplies, sharpening spears, painting lines across cheeks and chests. And then someone hands you a bowl, warm, thick, smelling of roots and something vaguely nutty. It's porapro stew made from the leaves of a native nightshade plant, toxic when raw but harmless, almost medicinal when properly cooked. You're told it sharpens the mind, settles the nerves. One spoonful, and your tongue tingles. This moment, more than any other, makes you pause, because here you are, in the middle of a war preparation, and the community still insists on feeding you mindfully and with care. You're not just fuel, you're a person, a soul, and that soul needs good soup. Historians still debate whether certain plants like poro were used primarily for ritual or nourishment. Some argue it had ceremonial uses only. Others point to charred remnants in cooking pits as proof of its everyday use. Once again, the truth likely lives in the murky middle. The sun creeps higher, casting long golden rays across the village. You feel the weight of your woven belt, the stickiness of pigment drying on your skin, and the strange calm that comes before the storm. You're not sure what role you'll play when the other tribe arrives. Probably mildly confused observer. But that's okay, because in this moment, under this sky, with this food in your belly and this community at your side, you feel something powerful. Not ready for war exactly, but maybe ready to stand with those who are. And that, it seems, is enough. The first sound isn't what you expect. No battle horn, no war cries, just birdsong. You wake slowly, blinking against the morning light that filters through the woven walls of your sleeping shelter. The village is quiet, but not still. You feel it in the way people move, swift, deliberate, wordless. A storm is brewing, not from the sky, but from the shore. You step out and nearly trip over a stack of taiaha, long wooden weapons with pointed ends and carved faces that seem to be watching you. One warrior lifts his and spins it in a tight arc, feet stomping with a rhythm so practiced it could be music. He grins at you. Want to try? You do, and immediately regret it. The taiaha feels heavier than it looks. You swing too slow, too high, too awkward. Another warrior chuckles and mimes ducking. If you ever get attacked by a very tall tree, he says, you're ready. Before you can respond, you're ushered to the edge of the village where preparations are underway, not just for battle, but for leaving. Fast, quiet, strategic. You're not staying to defend the village. You're heading to higher ground, toward a lookout point surrounded by dense bush. It's a retreat, but not out of fear. This is part of the plan. Your guide points to the earth ovens from yesterday, still warm, still full of smoked fish wrapped in bark. Buried treasure, he winks. We come back, we eat like chiefs. They come first, just hot rocks and disappointment. You hike for an hour, maybe more. It's hard to keep track. The terrain changes quickly. Soft dirt gives way to sharp volcanic stone, then cool, mossy patches, shaded by towering ferns. You stumble more than once. Someone offers you a walking stick. It smells faintly of kawakawa, a native plant used for healing. For balance, they say. You accept it. You are not proud. At the lookout, the mood shifts. The warriors crouch low, peering through gaps in the brush. You mimic them, unsure what you're looking for. Then you see it. Movement. Far off, down by the river, a cluster of strangers, armed and alert, following the trail your group just abandoned. They're moving slowly, wary, but they're on the scent. You expect tension, maybe a whispered plan, but instead someone hands you a small pouch of dried berries and pora, wild fern starch. You chew, and your mouth fills with a dusty sweetness. It's oddly calming. Comfort food, ancient style. There's a word passed between the warriors, a single nod. Then silence again. You want to ask 100 questions. What happens now? Is there going to be a fight? Should you be hiding? But instead, you're offered water and a square of roasted kumara. You accept both, trying not to shake. And just when you think this is it, this is where the story turns bloody. Nothing happens. The strangers move on. They don't find the trail. Maybe they weren't looking for a fight after all. Or maybe they were hoping to be seen, to be challenged, and the lack of response disarmed them. Either way, the crisis dissolves. As you breathe again, one elder leans over and whispers, "Not every war needs warriors. Sometimes, just watchers." Later that evening, back at the village, there's no grand celebration, no speeches, just a quiet return, people brushing soot from the oven stones, pulling out preserved fish like they never left. You eat in a circle, under a sky already darkening. Someone hands you a clay bowl of fermented taro, tangy and unfamiliar. For the nerves, they say, or the stomach, either way, you'll sleep. There's a kind of peace in this moment, so different from the storm you expected. You understand, finally, that Maori warfare wasn't just blood and blades. It was patience, observation, a readiness that didn't always need release. Some historians argue Maori tribes were too focused on honor to practice strategic withdrawal. Others point to centuries of guerrilla tactics, fort design, and food concealment as proof of a deeply tactical culture. The truth, as always, wears a mossy cloak and hides somewhere in the fern shadows. You lie back on your mat that night, belly full of smoked fish, mind full of spinning taiaha and silent stares. You didn't fight, but somehow you were part of something older, quieter, and maybe wiser. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, you might just try swinging that stick again. Hopefully not at a tree. Your dreams were filled with spinning staffs and whispering trees, but the morning hits you with something far more immediate, smoke. Not the kind that signals danger. This one smells delicious. You sit up and follow your nose to a low pit behind the main huts. It's another hangi, but this one is different. The usual root vegetables and fish are there, but now there's something stronger in the air. A meatier scent, unfamiliar, and a bit wild. Your guide greets you with a grin. "Kia ora, sleepyhead. You're just in time for dog." Wait, what? Before you can ask if you heard that right, someone places a small, steaming piece of meat in your hand. It's tender, faintly gamey, and served with a starchy yam. You hesitate. The guide sees your expression and chuckles. Don't worry, it's traditional. Māori used to breed kuri, Polynesian dogs, for companionship, and the menu. You chew slowly. It's not bad. As strange as it may sound to modern ears, dog meat was once a delicacy in traditional Māori cuisine. Reserved for high-ranking individuals, it was more than just sustenance. It was a statement. A warrior who feasted on kuri was, quite literally, taking on the strength of the animal. Or so the belief went. And yes, the dogs were cute. You saw carvings of them yesterday, squat little things with fox-like faces and tails that curled like question marks. They weren't just food. They were woven into cloaks, into stories, into lullabies. But then again, everything here seems to be woven into something else. Take the drinks, for example. There's no wine, no beer, but you are offered a gourd filled with a cloudy, slightly sour liquid that tastes like fermented apple skins. It's called pia, and it's made by chewing sweet potatoes and spitting the mash into a container where natural yeasts do the rest. Don't ask whose mouth made it, someone jokes. Just enjoy the buzz. You do. Sort of. It's mildly alcoholic, but mostly just weirdly fizzy. This is how warriors fuel themselves before battle, not with bloated stomachs and heavy meat sweats, but with strategic nutrition. Kumara for energy. Taro for fullness. Dog, occasionally, for protein and prestige. And berries, wild and tart, to keep the senses sharp. There's a practicality to it all, even if your modern instincts scream otherwise. No junk food, no caffeine, just the earth, the sea, and what you can gather without getting speared in the process. While you eat, someone pulls out a bone flute and starts playing a soft, winding tune. It floats through the air like mist. The rhythm is irregular, hypnotic. You close your eyes for a second and imagine it drifting across a battlefield, not as a call to arms, but as a way to calm nerves, to breathe together before chaos. Some historians believe music had a central role in Maori preparation for war, not the booming drums or trumpets of Western armies, but subtle, intimate sounds, flutes, chants, rhythmic tapping, not just for morale, but for memory, to pass on strategies, to remember losses, to call on ancestors. You glance at the warriors around you. Their faces are calm, but their bodies are always alert. Every muscle seems to know its job. No excess movement, no wasted gestures. It's like watching a coiled spring eat breakfast. One of them notices your stare. "We don't eat to get full," he says. "We eat to be ready." There's a pause. Then he adds with a grin, "Except Uncle Rangi. He eats to nap." You laugh. Uncle Rangi, who's already snoring in the shade, would probably agree. As the sun rises higher, the village stirs in ways that feel both ordinary and ceremonial. Kids play with miniature spears, mimicking adults. Elders inspect fishing tools. A woman sings while weaving a basket, her voice rising and falling like waves. It all feels so seamless, so intentional. Even rest is purposeful. You realize, slowly, that Maori battle preparation wasn't a matter of frantic last-minute drills. It was life. It was in the meals, the songs, the tools, the jokes. Every day fed into the moment when a weapon might be needed, not just to strike, but to defend, to retreat, or to intimidate without spilling blood. Not all scholars agree on the role of dog meat or fermented drink in pre-battle diets. Some argue that food rituals were more symbolic than functional. Others point to archaeological remains and oral traditions that suggest otherwise. As always, history is a dialogue whispered across generations. But in this moment, sitting in the smoky afterglow of a meal shared with people you barely know but already trust, you're not concerned with academic footnotes. You're just here, slightly buzzed, oddly full, and ready, though you're still not sure for what. You're still feeling warm from breakfast, physically and emotionally, when someone hands you a long wooden staff. It's polished, carved with swirling patterns, and surprisingly light in your hands. Before you can even ask what to do with it, a wiry man steps forward. He's shirtless, tattooed from jaw to waist, and holding a matching staff. His expression? Let's call it mischievously patient. Time for combat training. "Feet apart," he says, tapping your ankles into position with his own staff. "Knees bent, eyes on me, and don't blink." Blink? You're already sweating. The training begins not with a flurry of attacks, but with rhythm. You copy his movements, strike left, strike right, block, spin, crouch, thrust. It's almost like dancing, except this dance could knock someone's teeth out. This is the taiaha, a traditional Maori weapon that looks like a stick but acts like a sword, a spear, and baton all in one. Warriors trained with it from a young age, sometimes even learning before they could write their names. Well, assuming writing names was a thing, which it wasn't. The taiaha isn't just about muscle, it's a mental game, timing, deception, footwork. It's chess at 100 miles per hour. You realize pretty quickly that if someone wanted to smack you upside the head with it, they could, and would, several times. You trip, stumble, and at one point accidentally whack a chicken. The trainer winces. The chicken glares at you and walks off in a huff. Not bad, the trainer lies politely. You've got the heart, the balance. We'll work on. And work on it you do. Hours pass, or maybe it's just minutes that feel like years. Your arms burn, your shoulders ache, and your pride is somewhere under that bush you fell into. Yet there's something exhilarating about the whole thing. For the first time, you feel a flicker of understanding, not just of the physicality, but of the culture behind it. Every movement has meaning. Even how you stand says something. Respect, readiness, responsibility. Māori warriors didn't just fight to win. They fought to represent their iwi, or tribe. A defeat wasn't just personal. It was political, ancestral, and spiritual. And the taiaha wasn't just a tool. It was a connection to the ancestors who had once held it, trained with it, and defended their land with it. According to some researchers, the taiaha was often carved from wood, imbued with deep spiritual significance. Some even believe the wood came from trees, chosen through ritual, then felled with ceremonial chants. Others argue that's romanticized hindsight, but in Māori oral tradition these things carry weight, even if no one wrote them down. After training, you're invited to sit in the shade with a group of elders. One of them, eyes milky with age but voice sharp as ever, begins to chant. It's a karakia, a prayer for strength, protection, and maybe, just maybe, patience with clumsy tourists. The chant rises and falls like ocean swells. You don't understand the words, but you feel them. The rhythm echoes the staff drills. The cadence feels like footsteps in sand. You're not just hearing it, you're being pulled into it. Later, someone shows you an old taiaha, too brittle to use now, but wrapped in woven flax like a sleeping child. It belonged to a famous warrior, they say, who once used it to end a battle without striking a single blow. Just a stare, a stance, and one whispered warning. Sometimes, your guide tells you, the most powerful strike is the one you don't make. You look at the staff in your hands. It's heavier now, not in weight, but in meaning. As the day stretches lazily into afternoon, you join a line of warriors practicing formations. They move like a flock of birds, each turn, each stomp in sync. You're offbeat more than once, but no one laughs. Well, not out loud. Your body starts to learn what your brain hasn't caught up with yet. You anticipate moves before being shown. You pivot without overthinking. You even manage to strike a coconut clean off a stump. Okay, it was a soft coconut, but still progress. Some say the taiaha training isn't about fighting at all. It's about control, about listening to your own breath, about watching your opponent's eyes instead of their hands. Some scholars even debate whether these weapons were designed more for ceremony than actual war. But try telling that to your bruised thighs. Before sunset, the trainer claps you on the shoulder. Tomorrow, he says, you learn the haka. You nod, only vaguely aware of what you've agreed to. Your arms feel like overcooked noodles. Your brain is pudding. But your heart? It's wide awake. You wake to the scent of damp earth and charcoal, with your arms still sore from yesterday's weapon training. Honestly, you feel like you've wrestled a tree and lost. But there's no time to complain, because today isn't about sticks. Today is about thunder. You're learning the haka. And no, it's not that angry face dance thing from rugby, though you're not entirely wrong. It's just more than that. Way more. You're led to an open clearing where a group of men and women stand barefoot in rows. Their faces are calm, their bodies still, but there's something electric in the air, like the moment right before a thunderstorm hits, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. You're placed somewhere in the middle, which is strategic. You can't sneak out, and you can't mess up without everyone seeing. Great. Then, without warning, it begins. Kamate! Kamate! You jump. The chant cuts the air like a knife, followed by rhythmic stomping and synchronized slaps to bare chests and thighs. It's loud. It's raw. It's oddly beautiful. You try to follow along, but your timing's off. Your knees wobble, and your shout sounds more like a polite cough. A child nearby visibly winces. But here's the thing. No one laughs. Because the haka isn't a performance. It's not even just a battle cry. It's an identity. It's memory passed through muscle, emotion shouted through generations. Every stomp echoes a step from the past. Every gesture has a reason. Defiance, pride, mourning, challenge. You learn that haka were used for many things. To welcome guests, to honor ancestors, to grieve the dead. Yes, some haka were done before war, but that was just one piece of a larger spiritual fabric. Your instructor, a woman with the vocal force of a volcano and the poise of a sculpture, pauses mid-demonstration to point out something crucial. You don't do haka, you become it. That lands differently. She walks you through each move. The arm slaps meant to awaken the body, the foot stomps meant to connect you to the earth, the bulging eyes to show fearlessness, the protruding tongue to mock or intimidate. You do this one especially badly. A passing dog looks deeply offended. Then the words. Oh, the words. Ka ora, ka ora. These aren't just syllables. They're spells. They're from Ka Mate, one of the most famous haka, composed in the early 19th century by the Māori chief Te Rauparaha. According to tradition, he created it while hiding from enemies in a food storage pit, emerging alive and victorious, hence the cry, "It is death! It is death! It is life! It is life!" Historians still argue about whether he wrote it alone or adapted an older chant, but either way, it stuck. And now, centuries later, you're chanting it too. Awkwardly, yes, but with increasing conviction. There's a moment during rehearsal when something shifts. You lose track of your clumsiness. You forget the soreness. You're not thinking. You're just moving, chanting, becoming thunder. The line between you and the ancestors blurs a little. Later, over tea, someone explains that haka were often used before a feast, not after victory, but before battle, as a way to focus, to unify, to call upon spiritual strength. Think of it like pre-game prayer, but with more yelling and significantly less kneeling. You also learn there were women's haka, powerful, graceful, fierce. In fact, some tribes considered women's haka even more spiritually potent because women were life-givers. Warriors might go into battle with a haka in their ears, not their own, but their mother's. That's the thing Westerners often miss. Haka isn't rage. It's presence. It's a message to the gods, your enemies, your ancestors, and yourself that you are here, alive, unshaken, part of something older and deeper than bone. And yes, academic debates still rage over the haka's exact historical uses, whether it was more ceremonial than strategic, whether it differed across iwi. But while scholars dissect, the culture dances on. That night, your legs are jelly, your voice is hoarse, but your spirit feels tuned, like a drum pulled tight and ready to sing. As you lie on your mat, you can still feel the rhythm in your chest. Not fear, not anger, just thunder, waiting. The next morning, you're greeted by the scent of something bubbling over hot stones. You follow your nose, because honestly, your legs are too tired to follow ambition at this point, and end up at a makeshift pit where people are layering food beneath woven leaves and glowing rocks. Welcome to the hangi. This isn't just dinner, it's an edible time capsule. Your guide waves you over, and you crouch beside the pit like you're attending a secret ritual, which, in a way, you are. Preparing a hongi is an act of both science and ceremony, a slow-cooked story told through steam and soil. And yes, you're about to be a very well-fed chapter. First, they show you the process. Stones heated in a fire until they glow like tiny suns, food, root vegetables, fish, chicken, sometimes even shellfish, wrapped in flax or cloth, and then everything buried underground, covered in soil, left to cook for hours. There's no microwave beep here, just the slow exhale of steam and the quiet hush of a community waiting. You're handed a cup of something warm while the ground simmers. It's a kind of herbal infusion made from kawakawa leaves, earthy and sharp, with a smell that clears your sinuses and probably your karma. Someone claims it's good for everything from headaches to heartbreak. You're skeptical, but your sore calves are open to miracles. While you wait, a local elder tells you that hangi aren't just about eating. They're about connection between the land, the people, and the ancestors. Food is shared, stories are shared, silence even is shared. You sit cross-legged, watching steam rise from the dirt like breath from the earth. Someone quietly sings an old waiata, part lullaby, part oral history, and the atmosphere softens. Everything feels slower here, like even time is cooking underground. And this isn't just a village tradition. It was also a key part of pre-battle rituals. You see, warriors didn't march on empty stomachs. A hangi before battle wasn't just about calories. It was about strength, unity, and grounding. The act of eating together, of consuming the land's gifts, was spiritually binding. It reminded you where you came from, what you stood for, and who had your back when the spears started flying. You also learned that the choice of food in a hangi wasn't random. Certain tribes believed eel brought endurance. Kumara, sweet potato, represented prosperity. Shellfish connected warriors to Tangaroa, the god of the sea. Even the rocks mattered. Volcanic stones were preferred for their heat and durability, basically the prehistoric version of a good oven. As the food is unearthed, steam rushes out in a fragrant cloud that smells like heaven's kitchen. You're handed a woven plate, and the flavors hit like poetry. Smoky, soft, slightly earthy, deeply comforting. You take one bite and seriously consider never eating anything unburied again. Then someone points to a chunk of something stringy and brownish. "That's tot," they say, with a grin. Mutton bird, tastes like salty duck raised in a lighthouse. You try it. They're not wrong. Your host tells you that mutton birds were a seasonal delicacy for Maori, often preserved in their own fat and stored for months. A bit of a survival superfood, really, perfect for warriors heading off to long campaigns. And here's a fun fact. Maori food preservation methods were so effective that early European explorers documented being offered perfectly edible, months-old birds. Not everyone said, "Thank you." Some ran. Historians still argue over how often hangi were used before battles versus after. Some believe they were more of a celebration than a preparation, but what's clear is that food wasn't just functional. It was spiritual armor, fuel for the body, fire for the soul. As the feast winds down, you're invited to help cover the pit again. It feels like tucking the earth in for a nap, and you realize something odd. You're not just full, you feel safe, like part of something circular and enduring. Later that night, someone hands you a wooden comb carved with spirals and inlays. For your hair, they laugh, but mostly for the stories you've picked up. You stare at it, unsure whether to wear it or hang it on your wall. It feels less like an object and more like a memory you haven't fully made yet. That night, you sleep with the scent of smoked kumara on your skin and the echo of old songs in your ears. And in your dreams, the earth breathes beneath you. You wake up to the sound of splashing, rhythmic, deliberate, like the heartbeat of the ocean itself. When you shuffle toward the beach, still wrapped in last night's dreams and the lingering scent of smoked kumara, you see them. A line of canoes slicing through the morning mist. These aren't your average boats. These are waka tawa, war canoes, and they are magnificent. Each one is carved like a sculpture, long and sleek, with upturned prows that seem to challenge the sky. Painted patterns ripple along their sides, echoing the tattooed limbs of the paddlers who row in perfect unison. You count the strokes without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. Each one lands like thunder softened by water. You're told that building a wakatawa wasn't just a woodworking project. It was a sacred act. The process could take months, even years, and involved the entire community. The trees used, usually giant totara, were selected through ritual and prayer. When felled, offerings were made, songs were sung. Because the tree didn't just become a boat, it became an ancestor on water. As you approach, a man nods toward you and says, "Climb in." You hesitate. You're wearing what might generously be described as sleepy tourist chic, but they don't seem to mind, so you awkwardly crawl aboard, trying not to knock anything over or, tip the whole vessel. You sit low in the hull, surrounded by warriors, some young, with fierce eyes and silent mouths, others older, with eyes like smoke and laughter lines that tell you they've seen things and survived them. A carved figurehead looms at the front, its tongue out, daring the waves to even try. Then the paddling begins. You're part of the crew now, kind of. You try to mimic the rhythm, but your arms are already filing a complaint with HR. The others grin. One taps your paddle. Just feel it. Don't fight it. And strangely, you do. The waka glides across the water like it knows the way. And you, for the first time, stop thinking and just move. During a pause, your guide explains that these waka weren't only used for transport or battle, they were floating waka papa, genealogies on water. Each carving on the boat told a story of ancestors, gods, victories, and even warnings. Some waka had names passed down like titles, and sailing in them was like stepping into a living myth. But here's where it gets truly cinematic. You hear about an ancient tactic used by Māori warriors, waka ambushes. Entire war parties would glide silently under cover of night, oars muffled with flax. No torches, no chance, just breath and current. They'd land with eerie precision, sometimes even inside enemy territory, before anyone knew what hit them. Some historians debate just how many of these stealth missions actually took place. Oral histories are vivid, but the evidence is hard to pin down. Still, you can't help but picture it. An army of shadows arriving with the tide, fierce and silent as a dream. You also learn that waka tawa weren't just for men. There are stories of women helping steer, chant, even lead during voyages. Leadership in Māori tradition wasn't always defined by gender. It was about mana, authority, presence, that unshakable something you either had or didn't. A particularly mischievous storyteller nearby tells you about one legendary waka that allegedly got so full of preserved birds it tipped halfway through a raid, not because of an ambush, but because someone couldn't say no to extra snacks. You don't know whether to laugh or salute. Back on shore, you help haul the waka up the beach. The hull groans slightly, as if it remembers every journey it's ever made. You brush your hand along the carvings, birds, waves, eyes that seem to blink if you stare too long. It feels less like touching wood and more like touching time. Later, as the sun sets behind the headland, the paddlers sit in a circle and sing. Not war chants, but lullabies, gentle, layered, hypnotic. You sit beside them, letting the rhythm pull at something deep in your chest. You're not sure what it is. Maybe awe, maybe gratitude, maybe just the soreness of your shoulders pretending to be profound. But one thing's certain. If war ever comes by water, you now know it arrives beautifully. You're lying under a woven flax mat, staring at a sky so full of stars it looks like someone spilled glitter across black velvet. But you can't sleep, not yet. There's a low humming in the air. Not insects, not the sea. It's a human sound, a vibration rising like mist. You follow it. Turns out you've stumbled into a haka practice. And no, this isn't the sports version you've seen online where everyone slaps their thighs and screams at the camera. This is deeper, slower, heavier. It feels ancient, like thunder rehearsing. The haka you're witnessing isn't meant to entertain, it's meant to prepare. Tonight, the warriors are rehearsing a ceremonial haka performed before battle, ka mate, or perhaps peru, depending on the tribe. You don't dare interrupt to ask. The air is too thick with focus. They move in synchrony, eyes wide, tongues out, hands slapping against muscle. Feet stomp in rhythmic unison. Every sound echoes off the trees. You feel it in your rib cage. It's not just shouting, it's storytelling. Each motion says something. A challenge, a warning, a prayer. Some haka were meant to invoke ancestors, others to intimidate enemies, and still others just to psych yourself up so hard you forget fear exists. And yes, the haka can make people cry, not because it's sad, but because it strips away everything artificial. You're just left with pure ancestral fire. A local elder notices you watching and waves you closer. You half expect to be told to leave, but instead you're invited to observe properly. This is how we prepare to be more than ourselves, she says. She explains that haka weren't always the same. Each iwi tribe had their own versions. Some used weapons. Others were entirely voice-based. Some included women. Yes, really. There are haka composed specifically for women, full of grace and bite, because spiritual strength doesn't ask for a beard. The haka is also a historical document. Events, victories, migrations, all encoded into words and movement. Some are so old, even the performers don't fully understand every line anymore. Scholars debate their origins, but one thing's clear. Haka is living history, still growing, still burning. You're told of a rare haka performed only when returning from battle with heavy losses. It starts slow, like mourning, but ends with defiant pride. The point isn't just to grieve, it's to promise you'll rise again. Honestly, it gives you chills. Then comes the fun part. One of the younger warriors grins at you and asks, Want to try? You, already halfway to a yawn and wearing what amounts to pajamas, blink at him. Don't worry, he adds. We won't laugh. Much. So you join. Badly. Your stomp is offbeat. Your shout sounds like a frog sneezing. Your attempt at a fierce face makes one auntie snort. But no one mocks. In fact, they clap for you. Because haka isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Later, around the fire, you hear a theory that haka might have started as dances to honor harvests or the gods, only evolving into battle forms later. But not everyone agrees. Some historians argue haka were always martial. Others say, why not both? As the embers glow red, a storyteller leans in and shares a secret. Some haka lines were codes, hidden messages, clues to rally points, escape routes, even betrayals. And only the right ears knew how to listen. You find yourself mouthing some of the chant under your breath, not to perform, but to remember. Not because you've earned it, but because you were welcomed to witness it. Eventually, someone wraps a warm cloak around your shoulders. It smells of smoke, sweat, and fern leaves. And that hum returns, not from the haka, but from inside you. You wake up to the sound of water sloshing in gourds and the soft rustle of earth ovens being uncovered. Smoke curls upward, mingling with the scent of roasted kumara, taro, and the unmistakable aroma of something smoky and sweet. Your stomach, long past polite, makes an undiplomatic sound. This morning isn't about war chants or weapon drills. It's breakfast. And for a Maori warrior, breakfast, especially before battle, was strategic, sacred, and surprisingly delicious. You walk toward the hangi pits, where food is being lifted from layers of hot stones, soaked cloth, and earth. This underground oven is the traditional way of cooking, using thermal heat and pressure to turn root vegetables soft and meats tender enough to fall apart just from a pointed look. You're handed a small woven tray, inside smoky eel, soft sweet potatoes, chunks of wild bird, and a paste of pounded fern root. No utensils, just your hands and, if you're fancy, a leaf to wipe your mouth. And here's the twist. This isn't just a meal, it's fuel. Carefully balanced for energy, endurance, and a bit of mental edge. Warriors weren't stuffing themselves. They were calibrating. Eat too much, you're sluggish. Eat too little, you're toast. Eat the wrong thing, and well, no one wants to cramp mid-sprint while wielding a taiaha. One elder tells you that warriors often avoided heavy pork before conflict, leaning instead on birds like kereru, a plump wood pigeon, or preserved seafood. Some even fasted. There's a saying, you fight lighter when you're a little hungry. You sip from a bowl of warm kawakawa tea, peppery, herbal, and soothing. It's said to sharpen the senses and calm the nerves. Honestly, you'll take two. What's really interesting is that much of the knowledge behind these meals came from women. They controlled food preparation, planting cycles, and even food taboos. Certain warriors weren't allowed to eat particular animals before battle, especially if a bad omen had occurred. Historians still debate whether some of these restrictions were spiritual or practical. Did they believe eating certain birds made you slow, or did those birds just go bad faster in warm weather? The line between ritual and science gets blurry, sometimes intentionally so. You glance at a bundle wrapped in leaves. It's a pre-battle snack pack. Yes, really. Portable rations. Jerky-like strips of dried fish. A dense cake made of root starch and fat, and fermented berries for energy. Think paleo power bar, with more attitude. One of the warriors tells you that in rare cases, blood was mixed into ceremonial foods, not for nutrition, but for symbolism. Before you get squeamish, they assure you, not all tribes did this, and historians are still arguing about which ones, when, and why. But it reminds you, this isn't just eating. This is preparation on every level: physical, emotional, cosmic. As the sun climbs, warriors begin tying belts, tightening armbands, and checking weapons. One quietly places a small food offering near a tree. "For those who fought before us," he murmurs. You don't ask which ancestor, it feels too personal, but you follow his lead, leaving a small bite of sweet potato beside a rock, shaped like a crouched figure. That's the thing. In this world, food is never just calories. It's connection. It's memory. It's a quiet promise to honor those who walked before you. And as you chew your final bite of smoky eel, you realize this isn't just breakfast before battle. It's the last peaceful moment of clarity before the chaos, the stillness before the storm. And that, in its own way, is sacred. You're walking now, feet sinking into soft moss and mud, along a narrow forest trail carved by centuries of footsteps. The trees rise like cathedral columns, dappling sunlight across your path. Every now and then, you pass a stone marker or carved stump left by warriors before you, some as warnings, some as prayers, and some just there. A reminder that someone else passed this way, just as tense, just as hopeful. No more campfires, no more singing. Everyone's quiet now. Even the birds seem to hush. You're heading toward the edge, the final ridge before the battlefield. But before you cross into open land, there's one more ritual. A tohunga, the tribe's spiritual guide, stops you. He's draped in a flax cloak, face painted in winding black ink, and his gaze, it feels like it cuts through your ribs and settles somewhere behind your spine. He lifts a bundle from his satchel. Inside, herbs, ashes, and a small carved charm made of bone. It's time for karakia, an incantation of protection. You kneel. The chant is low, rhythmic, and steady, like waves pounding a beach in slow motion. It's not a "you will win" chant. It's a "you are part of something bigger" chant. The point isn't personal victory, it's ancestral alignment. Your skin prickles. It's probably the wind, but also maybe not. Here's a detail scholars love to argue over: whether the karakia was more about psychological preparation or genuine spiritual shielding. One camp says it's purely mental conditioning, like a pre-game hype speech. Others insist it's metaphysical armor. You? Right now, you're just grateful someone's invoking the sky on your behalf. The tohunga smears a line of ochre across your forehead and presses the bone charm into your palm. "Don't lose it," he mutters, "or if you do, make sure you come back for it." You're not sure if that's supposed to be comforting. Now, here's where things get even more layered. In some iwi tribes, warriors would undergo a kind of sensory preparation, lying still for hours, fasting, even walking barefoot over hot stones. The idea: sharpen every nerve. Be so in tune with your surroundings that you could hear a twig snap 3 valleys away. Others would ingest small amounts of kawakawa or harakeke root. Not quite a drug, not quite tea, but something to stabilize the stomach and settle the blood. Imagine drinking a sleepy time herbal cocktail laced with "don't panic, just focus." One of the elders points at your wrists. "No ornaments," he says. "No shiny things. If they catch the sun, you'll be the first target." Practical advice wrapped in ritual logic. You remove the shell bracelet you'd forgotten you were even wearing. Then silence. Just before you crest the hill, you stop. Everyone does. It's like the entire group just hit an invisible wall. Below, in the valley, your opponents are waiting. They look small from here, just specks of brown and green. But you know they're warriors too, probably doing the same thing as you right now, some even cousins from a distant tribe. And you wonder, not for the first time, how did we get here? How did we go from trading kumara to pointing spears? The historian in your brain wants to answer land disputes, honor, resources. But a deeper part of you, the part now gripping that little bone charm, just whispers. Because this is what we've always done. The Tohunga gives one last nod. You cross the ridge. The grass feels oddly soft under your feet, which is the last thing you expect to notice. But here you are, tiptoeing through a meadow that's about to become very loud, very fast, and you're thinking, wow, that's unexpectedly plush. Maybe you're stalling. Maybe your brain is trying to hold on to one last peaceful detail before things erupt. You've entered what's known, rather poetically, as the Kainga Tuhera, or open ground. This is where disputes become declarations, where your breath counts as much as your blade. Let's be clear, you're not in a Hollywood battle. There's no orchestral swell, no dramatic slow motion, just sweat, heartbeat, and the rustle of flax armor as the haka begins. Oh yes, that. Your group lines up. You take your spot. Someone nods. Then from deep within the chest of the man to your right comes a growl that seems to vibrate through the ground. You add your voice. The group moves in sync. Feet stomping, hands slapping thighs, tongues out, eyes wide. The haka is more than a war dance. It's a storm surge of identity. It says, we are here. We know who we are. We're not scared of you, or of death. Scholars have debated for years how much the haka was psychological warfare versus a genuine spiritual invocation. Did it rattle the enemy or steady the self? Answer, probably both. And you can feel it now. Your fear hasn't disappeared, but it's been reshaped, refined into something sharp and usable. The air smells like earth and adrenaline, and now you charge. The details blur. You don't remember every movement, every sound. You remember flashes, a glint of obsidian in someone's hand, the sudden scream of a falcon overhead, the surprising amount of sand in your mouth, and then silence again. Not total silence, but a strange underwater hush, like the world has pressed pause. You're standing. That's good. Your shoulder hurts. Less good. There's someone beside you, breathing hard. You don't know if he's friend or foe, but you nod at each other, and somehow that's enough. Now for a curveball. Some iwi believed that battle wasn't over until certain rituals had been performed, including the taking of heads, known as mokomokai. Yes, that's a grim detail, and no, we won't linger. But what's important is this. Those acts weren't just brutal trophies. They were tied to belief systems about mana, justice, and spiritual release. It was complex, messy, and deeply cultural. In fact, some of the most intense post-battle rituals were about spiritual cleansing, because even a justified fight left spiritual residue. You might win, but you still carried the shadow of what you did. So, after the final cries fade and the bodies are counted, you return to the Tohunga. He's already building a small fire. He hands you a cup of water laced with kawakawa and murmurs a chant so old it sounds more like wind than words. You drink. He presses his palm to your forehead again. Leave what happened there, he whispers. Not here. And you try. You really do. But later that night, under a sky littered with stars, you dream of the haka. Not the violence, just the sound of it. The thunder of 100 voices saying, we are here. We remember who we are. And somehow that stays with you far longer than any wound. You're home now, or at least something close to it. The battle is behind you. Your body is sore in ways you didn't know were possible. Even your eyebrows feel tired. But tonight is not for pain. Tonight is for Kai Hakari, the feast. You're greeted with a grin from your cousin, who's been waiting beside the cooking pit, or umu. Still alive, huh? He smirks, handing you a carved wooden bowl. You grunt. He laughs. It's a welcome sound. The air is thick with smoke and the mouth-watering scent of slow-roasted kumara, taro, shellfish, and freshly caught eel wrapped in leaves. Someone is steaming fern root over hot stones. And yes, there's even a pig roasting, though that's a newer addition. Trade with Europeans has begun, and with it came pigs and potatoes. Māori adapted fast, deliciously fast. But don't expect a wild party. This isn't a frat house barbecue. A Kai Hakari is structured, sacred even. Food is mana. Sharing food restores balance between you and the ancestors, between fighters and their families, between your stomach and that void it's been growling from for 3 days. You sit cross-legged under a flax awning while the elders give thanks to the Atua, gods of war, earth, sea. A few kids giggle nearby. A woman hums as she passes out bowls of steaming food, and you realize something funny. This, right here, feels more intense than the battlefield. There's a reason for that. Food for Māori is never just food. It's memory, it's offering, it's proof that life continues. Take karakia, the ritual incantations whispered over food before eating. You say them to acknowledge the energy that went into this meal, the fisherman who caught the tuna, the grandmother who planted the kumara, the rain that fell at just the right moment, the ancestors who made all of this even possible. You murmur the karakia and take your first bite. Hot, sweet, smoky. There is a surprising complexity to it, like the land cooked it with its own emotions. Across the fire, someone starts recounting what happened during the fight, embellished, of course. I swear, the guy was twice my size, maybe 3 times. I just blinked and whack! You chuckle. It's good to laugh. Your muscles don't quite agree yet, but your heart appreciates the gesture. A tohunga rises. His voice is calm, but it carries. He speaks of the past, of ancestors who feasted after victories and failures alike. It's not whether you won or lost, he says. It's whether you came back changed. If you didn't change, then why leave it all? You sit with that. There's a warmth to the night that's not just from the fire. You feel it in your bones, in your belly, in the way your fingers curl around the carved bowl like it's something sacred, because it is. As the moon climbs higher, people start drifting off, some to sleep, some to sing, others to sit in silence. A few children pretend to fight with fern fronds, mimicking the haka, giggling, fallen over. Life insists on continuing. And you lie back and gaze at the stars. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like an ancestral canoe. You imagine your tipuna looking down, proud and weary, whispering old wisdom into the wind. You're no longer hungry, not in your body, not in your spirit. And now, you're full. Not just with food, but with story, with rhythm, with earth. Your breath slows, sinking with the soft rustle of ferns in the breeze. There's no more war drums tonight, only the hush of waves and the creak of ancient trees. You close your eyes. Somewhere in the distance, someone is still singing. A lullaby, maybe, or a memory disguised as melody. The fire's glow flickers behind your eyelids. You're not quite asleep, not quite awake, just floating, cradled in the arms of the past. And if you listen close enough, the stars themselves seem to whisper old recipes, old names, old laughter, like the ancestors leaning in to say, "Rest. You've walked enough for one night." So you do.